tonight we have as our guest on Focus Dr. Saul. Dr. David Saul is the Minister of Finance and the pivotal figure in our overall scheme of things here in Bermuda. Doc, as we've talked briefly, how does your ministry relate to everything else that goes on in Bermuda? I mean, normally most of us think in terms of our pocketbooks before we do most of anything. You control the pocketbook of the country.
Yes, well, the Ministry of Finance, there's no question about it there, Mr. Brock, is the one ministry that is the El Supremo in government and probably in the country itself. One, we do set taxes. Two, we do oversee the whole of the economy of the country. And I think most people will see us as the tax collector, but we aren't really the tax collector. The Ministry of Finance, if I can describe it like a little pyramid, is a group of 10 people that are the boss of Customs, the Accountant General's Department, that's the one who's the tax collector, but indeed there also is the Tax Commissioner's Office, the Registrar of Companies, the Statistical Department. All of these come under the Ministry of Finance. But because of our peculiar nature, we also find ourselves responsible for the Attorney General's chambers, the governor's portfolio, and indeed in the House we also speak for the Ministry of Information Services. So it has always been joked that I could probably stand up in the budget debate and tell everyone else to go home and deal with everything in the budget debate. But insofar as the economy itself is concerned, what we find ourselves doing is overseeing the affairs of international businesses on the island and working hand in glove with the Ministry of Tourism for the income that comes from that particular section of the economy. Let me just start off by, I think, setting the scale, setting the scene and putting some sort of basic perspective on how we earn our money. I have been lauded and attacked for coining the phrase Bermuda Inc., saying that it is Bermuda, the economy of Bermuda, is just like one big factory. General Motors, right? What do General Motors sell? Motor cars, says someone. Yes, and including spare parts, because that's where they make their money, not by selling the motor cars. However, Bermuda sells something also, just like General Motors. It sells service. What do you mean by service, they say? Goodwill, friendliness, whether it be the London taxi or somebody who is just operating his own taxi or someone who is waiting on a customer or indeed someone who's working in international business. All they're doing is selling a service. So Bermuda Inc., all of us work for the same company.
Now when you say Bermuda Inc., you're saying
Bermuda Inc., I ought to say Bermuda Limited, but I want to get across the sort of basic thing that you are a big, huge conglomerate. All of us are working for the same company, doing the same thing, selling a service. Whether you're a water trucker, whether you're a taxi driver, whether you're at the front desk in a hotel, or whether you're a bookkeeper, or a chartered accountant, or indeed a lawyer, or for that matter, a doctor. Basically, all of us are selling a service. To whom is the next question. We are selling a service to tourists on one hand. Some 500,000 of them, 500,000 a year, come to Bermuda, and they come for one reason. They want to enjoy themselves. How do they enjoy themselves? They enjoy themselves by meeting Bermudians. Unlike many of the islands to the south, where people come and they stay at one hotel, stay on the beach, never move from there, in Bermuda they hop on a moped, motorbike, and travel all over the place and meet us buys. Right? That's the service we sell them. That basically, in round figures, brings in about $500 million a year, right? $500 million. That's not quite enough to really keep us to the way we've become accustomed since the war. So we have another string to our economic bow, international business. What are international businesses? They are companies from abroad that often can be one person, a personal holding company. So a wealthy person from any Middle Eastern country, take Lebanon, that's completely racked by civil war, etc. They speak French. So this very wealthy Lebanese decides he's going to go to France to live. He's clearing out of this madhouse. And when he goes, he immediately is told, very high tax rate in France. So he asks around, and he said, well, where can I park my money? Where can I put my money so I am not going to be taxed? And someone very wisely tells him, well, Bermuda is an ideal place to put it. The government is honest. There's no bribery, no corruption on the island. The lawyers, the accountants, indeed the people of Bermuda are as honest as the day is long. I want to go there. And out of the 7,090 international companies on the register, that's who are located in Bermuda, have their company headquarters in Bermuda, half of them are personal holding companies or corporate holding companies. Companies like that person I just cited who want to have their headquarters in Bermuda. They don't necessarily want to live in Bermuda. They'd love to visit because tourism is very good, but they basically live somewhere else. Now, as I said, out of the 7,000, half of them are personal or corporate holding companies. Of the remaining ones, you have a multitude of things, mutual fund companies, and indeed a lot of reinsurance and insurance companies. But of the 7,000, only 290 have a physical presence in Bermuda. But all of them together, on this side is tourism, 500 million. And on this side with international business is about 350 million. Right, so all told, this 500 million on one side and let's say the 400 million on the other give us 900 million. Round it off and call it $1 billion. So Bermuda is a $1 billion economy. Now, having established the fact that it's a $1 billion economy, what does this mean to us? Now, along with my Bermuda Inc., I've also coined another phrase which is calculated to show people how the economy works. I call it the cookie jar. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your vantage point on this one, on January 1, Bermuda has no money in its cookie jar. And in January 1, first day of January, a tourist or an international company puts money into the cookie jar. And over the year, right, the 365 days, $1 billion goes into the cookie jar. Say $1 billion US. Now, what do we do with that? What we do in Bermuda is we spend it, right? We earn that by selling a service. But then we have to put our hand into the cookie jar and start spending it. Now, what sort of sensible things do we do? One, we pay for all the electricity that we get. So all the electricity, if you just look around, the lights, your telephone, how it works, all comes from Belco churning out electricity. That electricity has to be paid for in oil, right? Bulk oil comes in from Venezuela to Esso. It's pumped, it looks like crude mud, right? It's not the same gasoline. It's oil that's poured in, and it runs the generators at Belco. We have to put our hand in the cookie jar and pay the Venezuelans for that money. Equally, all the cars that run around all need, A, to be purchased, let's say to Japan. So if Mr. Toyota doesn't give us those motor cars, we have to purchase them. So there's some 1,000 or more cars a year that come onto the road. Put our hand into the cookie jar, we pay Mr. Toyota, Mr. Nissan, etc. Then we say, oh, they won't run on water, so we then say, right, we need to pay for the gasoline for it, which is separate from Belco's oil. So we then have to pay, again, Shell, Esso for that gasoline. Equally, we Bermudians are happy to travel abroad. Can't travel abroad on a Bermuda dollar. They won't accept that in New York. So what we do then is we say we want to go on a trip. We need to get off the rock. Right? I'm rock happy. I've got to go. So what we do, we Bermudians, all of us, of all 50-odd thousand, say 60,000, but just take a round figure, 100,000. That's each one of us, man, women, and children, not once a year, but twice a year, decide to go away. And so if you go away, you need to put your hand again in the cookie jar to take some of the US dollars that we've earned by giving a service. We need to take those and spend them abroad. I told you 100,000 trips by Bermudians. If you take 100,000 and multiply it by 10, what have you got? It's always neat to do this, if I may. Here you go. There are 100,000 trips each year. 100,000 trips. If you take $1,000 with you, you add 3 more zeros. How much money is needed if each one of us Bermudians go abroad each year once and take twice and take $1,000? $100 million. But we don't take $1,000, we take $2,000. $200 million. 200 million is spent by all of us Bermudians just to travel. Now, you forgot about Belco oil. You forgot about the cars. You forgot about food. So take all of those and you'll see, as I told you earlier, I'll probably do this, I should do this one in red, 200 million just for trips. Then you need Belco, cars, food, etc. Videos, televisions, furniture, clothing, all that we spend out of the 500 million that tourists bring in. Fortunately, you have then the 400 million. Now all of this, when added together, and here's an interesting point, when you take the 900 million, then you subtract all that goes out of, if I may once again draw my cookie jar, it has US dollars in it. As you take that down, at the end of the year, we have nothing. We basically save nothing out of the 900 million. But an interesting fact comes into play. As the 900 million moves around, and basically it's called value added, right? Or in economic terms, the multiplier. That 900 million changes into 1.6 billion. So the economy of Bermuda is a $1.6 billion, and it's simply done this way. If you keep the money in Bermuda, and I pay the gardener, I pay the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, this money makes money. So the economy of Bermuda, out of the 900 million cash that comes in, if we can keep it here, as we do now, we get 1.6 billion. But out of that 500 plus 400, out of this, you can see we spend it on trips, we have to pay Belco, etc. So the economy of Bermuda all goes back to what we earn in foreign currency from tourists on one hand and international companies on the other. This is how we earn our daily bread. We must understand, all of us, that unless the tourist comes and unless the international company man comes, we would starve. We wouldn't be able to pay for our food. We wouldn't be able to drive around in our cars. So it is important that we know that we have to earn it. It doesn't come on trees.
10,000 feet up, miles from help, you're stranded. You scream and no one can hear you. As America watched one hometown dared the impossible,
you do what you have to do to save them.
NBC presents the actual story of the real-life rescue.
Somebody down there!
5 ordinary people who pulled together for a life-saving miracle.
Andy!
Robert Conrad in a world premiere movie.
I'm gonna try and snag him.
And now, Search and Rescue.
DeFonce Broadcasting and Once Upon a Table want to give you dinner. VSB News are interested in hearing the news stories you have. A news tip of the week makes you eligible for a dinner for two at Once Upon a Table. Call 295-7484 with your news tip, and you may get dinner for two at Once Upon a Table for the news tip of the week. The news tip number again, 295-7484.
World Cup 94, American style. A preview of the world's greatest sports spectacle. Coming soon to VSB TV 11 Cable 4.
10,000 feet up, miles from help. You're stranded. You scream, and no one can hear you. As America watched one hometown dared the impossible,
You do what you have to do to save them.
NBC presents the actual story of the real-life rescue.
Somebody down there!
5 ordinary people who pulled together for a life-saving miracle.
Andy!
Robert Conrad in a world premiere movie.
I'm gonna try and snag him.
And now, search and rescue.
Living the dream. A behind-the-scenes look at some of the qualifying matches for the World Cup finals. Coming soon to VSB TV 11, Cable Channel 4.
Can Bermuda survive without the mechanism that's in place now, the tourism and the international companies?
Yeah, the simple answer to that is no. We couldn't survive, and there have been periods in our history before, over the last 350 years, where things got tough in Bermuda. And indeed they got tough just before the Second World War, and people talked about mass emigration. And if the tourists stopped coming, or there was a continual drop-off, and international business, which is inextricably tied to tourism, it's a chicken and the egg. International business would not have come here if it wasn't for tourism. Right? They come here for annual general meetings, they come here to talk to accountants, lawyers, etc. They bring their wives, or indeed some of the wives bring their husbands, and this goes around and round. Also, international business helps tourism. I would wager about 17% of the people that come to Bermuda as tourists really are associated with international business. But the direct answer to your specific question is, if there was a continuous downturn, we would be able to cut our cloth, in other words, lower our standard of living. Instead of 2 trips, 1 trip. And if you followed what some of the islands to the south, when you do take a trip, you can only take $25 US. We can now take almost as much as you want. You can take $2,000, you can take $3,000, as spending money. But what we found in looking at our analysis at the Ministry of Finance, that if things turned down, what would happen is people would have to leave Bermuda, find work abroad. We certainly can't feed ourselves. By a conservative guess, we could probably last a month if we started to catch fish again and grow our own groceries, etc. We could not last without dipping into the cookie jar and paying money abroad. So food would be the primary thing that we'd need. We'd have to pay that Belco oil in order to keep electricity going, to cook the food if nothing else, but to take care of those tourists there. But enough of that. Let's not take the negative, take the positive.
Major question before you go on, how many people really understand this? I mean, how many people really understand that unless we provide the best possible service, unless we do what is, if you will, required of a service economy as best as is humanly possible, we will starve?
You ask a question, how many? I would guess that 50% of the Bermudian population understand the seriousness of it. I think if we reflect back to our school days, we didn't really understand the importance of tourism. Today, I think a very large number of Bermudians, we all watch the television, we watch CNN, we watch all of that comes from satellite, and we hear that, for example, the American government, if you think of Greenspan, that the government prints the money. This is the big problem in the U.S. economy. Too many people think we, in the government somewhere, print Bermuda dollars. We don't. A word of the Bermuda dollar. Each time that we produce a Bermuda dollar, they're actually minted in the United Kingdom, a firm called De La Rue. They mint one of these little things that is called, let's just take a $10 bill. Right, for each one of those that is stored at the Monetary Authority, we, the government of Bermuda, through the Monetary Authority, peg it to the US dollar. So we say it's worth, a $10 bill is worth 10 US. But we back it 15 cents, 15%, right, 15 cents. For every $1, we deposit in a US bank to back our note 15 cents. So a $10 bill, which we say is par with the US dollar, we put aside a reserve of $1.50 for every $10. So we don't just mint them and hand them out. For every one of those that we put out, we basically have to dip in the cookie jar to back it. Otherwise, it would be genuine monopoly money. People wouldn't accept it. I mean, wouldn't have any buying power. It is, as I said earlier, not an international convertible currency. Now, here's the point that I'm really getting to. If you wanted to get, as I said, guessing, 50% of the population who don't understand the importance of this, there's one key move we could make. Abandon the Bermuda dollar entirely. Right? Take all of those notes that are at the Monetary Authority and burn them. So never again would you see a Bermuda dollar. We said to everybody, right, here's some real economics for you. Real fiscal analysis. You want to go on a trip? We have to earn it first. You want a new car? Earn it. You'd understand then graphically that in the cookie jar on January 1, all of us Bermuda boys are sitting there saying, when's the first tourist coming? And we all clap as the first US dollar drops in there. And then the next one, and then the next, and then the next, until it builds up. And then we say, I want to go on a trip. We say, wait a moment. The cookie jar must reach a certain height because we've got to, 1, pay the Belco bill. Otherwise, there's no electricity. Next, we must pay for our food bill. Otherwise, there's nothing to eat. You may change those around. But you can see the priority that we Bermudians would have to then say, okay, all those US dollars are valuable. We need to jealously guard them. You can't take 100 trips and $3,000 each because the cookie jar is a bit low. Tourism has not been too good so far. The first quarter's been dismal, right? If you abandon the Bermuda dollar so that when somebody said, I want more money or I want more government services, you'd say, that's all right. First of all, let's check the cookie jar. Let's see how many dollars those international companies have brought in. Let's see how much money the tourists have brought in before you can buy your new video or buy your new car. Just a moment. Let's see. Now this is called balance of payments. In other words, the money that you earn in and you spend out, naturally enough, just like the ordinary householder, you sit down with your wife and you say, we need a new bathroom, need a new kitchen, We need a new dishwasher. Let's see how much money we've earned, your salary and my salary. Add that up. Now, let's pay the Belco bill, the telco bill, the food bill, children's clothing, new dress. Good heavens, the amount that we've earned won't allow us to buy a new dishwasher this month. Now, if I put it graphically to the people of Bermuda, if we said, right, on a balance of payments thing, look at the cookie jar. How many US dollars are left in the cookie jar? Almost to the bottom. Who is that saying that they would like to buy 100 more cars from Japan? Afraid you can't do it because the cookie jar is almost empty, and we must pay the Belco bill, just like home. We must pay the food bill, just like home. Now, this is the way that I often graphically describe it to school children. I go out every year and talk to high schools, graduating classes, and I show them a US dollar and the old Bermuda note, not the coin this time because I matched the two, and I explain to them graphically how important it is to understand we Bermudians have got to earn those foreign greenbacks in order to spend those foreign greenbacks. If the Bermuda dollar was abandoned, it might, the penny might drop to Bermudians that we are a service economy, we sell a service, and we must sell it as well as we can.
Thank you, Dr. Saul. Appreciate it. This has been Focus, another program, this time with Dr. David Saul. We'll talk more with Dr. Saul in our next program.
World Cup 94, American style. A preview of the world's greatest sports spectacle. Coming soon to VSB TV 11 Cable 4. Local weather is first, fast, and accurate on VSB TV 11, weeknights at 7 at 11. From the weather offices at NAS Bermuda, VSB TV 11 Weather offers details you need to plan your evening and daily activity and looks at the overall weather picture for your weekends. Accurate and dependable, VSB TV 11 Weather. Watch us to be sure at 7 and 11 weeknights.
Feet up, miles from help. You're stranded. You scream, and no one can hear you. As America watched one hometown dared the impossible,
You do what you have to do to save them.
NBC presents the actual story of the real-life rescue.
Somebody down there!
5 ordinary people who pulled together for a life-saving miracle.
Andy!
Robert Conrad in a world premiere movie.
I'm gonna try and snag him.
And now, Search and Rescue.
DeFonts Broadcasting and Once Upon a Table want to give you dinner. VSB News are interested in hearing the news stories you have. A news tip of the week makes you eligible for a dinner for 2 at Once Upon a Table. Call 295-7484 with your news tip, and you may get dinner for 2 at Once Upon a Table for the news tip of the week. The news tip number again, 295-7484.